Psychology is the new firewall, where human insight trumps every trick. We're not hacking systems, we're hacking behaviors so you won't click. No complicated code, just tried and true brain science at play. Social engineering for good, the best defense is in your mind today.
Welcome to Phishing for Answers. The opinions expressed here are solely those of the individuals involved and do not reflect the views of their employers. Get ready, because the next live episode of Phishing for Answers is starting right now with your host, Joshua Krumbaugh, the CEO of Fish Firewall.
Psychology is the new firewall, where human insight trumps every trick. We're not hacking systems, we're hacking behavior so you won't click.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Phishing for Answers. Today, I'm here with Matthew Maynard. He is on the cybersecurity team over at BJC Healthcare. Hey, Matthew, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. How about you, Joshua?
Oh, I'm great. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so as you said, my name is Matthew Maynard. I'm a cybersecurity specialist. Been in this industry for a little over 18 years now. Work at BJC Healthcare as an incident response analyst, level 3 for the SOC team. Pretty much the job is to investigate threats that happen internally and externally, also staying ahead of all the recent trends and threats that are going on in the world today. Like I said, I've had a little over 18 years experience in InfoSec, and I've had the privilege of working in different industries from like automotive to insurance to healthcare. I was an ethical hacker at one point where companies paid me to break into their defenses and then kind of train and learn from the weaknesses there. I've also expanded in the dark web research, which is the biggest thing right now, where it's blending in with cyber criminals and gathering intelligence so you could better your defenses. But that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Other stuff is like I like to smoke meat and I like to play retro games, and I have 2 kids and I love the outdoors.
Awesome. I love to smoke meat as well. So
Yeah. I think it's a thing you have to do when you get older. You know, it's one of those narratives you just follow naturally when you're done. It's like you have to either love World War II or you have to smoke meat. Which one?
Are you really into taking care of your lawn as well, or did you not get that stereotype yet?
It's like you're staring into my soul. Yeah, pretty much. I think when I got to a certain age, I think I'm 42. So I think when I started getting into my I call them later years, stuff like that, I became more and more like my dad. I'd pass a house and I'd see their nice green grass and it'd be cut a certain way. Like, man, that's a nice grass. And I just don't know how it just started happening. And I start looking at other people's lawns and stuff. I'm like, I love the lines that they do. What kind of fertilizer do they use? And it's never been a thing, but whatever.
Oh, that's great. So how do you get into cybersecurity?
Oh man. So one of my favorite movies to watch is Paul Blart. So he's like the mall cop and stuff, and he takes security very seriously. So I used to have like the one saying above my desk, and it used to be the thing that he said at the security conference was that security chose him. And that was kind of my mantra for a long time. And it actually is true with me, because when I was getting into cybersecurity, I was just doing IT support, and I'd worked for this smaller company who didn't have the budget for IT security. So since you're the only IT guy there, that was it. And it was like, well, you're going to learn how to do it. So you're in charge now. So it was figuring out what to do and how to protect assets. And it was for like an insurance company too. So I had to learn about HIPAA and rules, regulations, best practices, and, all that stuff. And, I just started learning more about it. And then I already had a passion for protecting people since I was a kid. The first thing I remember like holding on to my Batman action figure. And it was at that point that I knew I wanted to help protect and defend people. And it stuck. And then pursuing cybersecurity was great because the avenue I wanted to get into was healthcare, protecting people with healthcare. And it was right around when WannaCry was just slapping the snot out of the industry. And then, that was a big deal for healthcare at the moment. So it was just joining that fight and starting to protect people more and more every day, and learning about the ins and outs of cybersecurity with healthcare and how organizations handle it and how they basically their ecosystem works as well. And, I've been with that ever since. And cybersecurity is just not a job for me. It's a passion. I'm not good at anything else. it's in me. It's what I really love to do.
Hey, I hear you. I gotta say that's the first time I've heard Paul Blart or Batman during the "How did you get into cybersecurity?" answer.
It's
But I
it's
love
true.
it, and I sort of stumbled into cybersecurity myself as well. I guess I found the 2600 groups way back in when I was a kid teaching myself to code.
Yeah,
And I always was very intrigued by hacking and studied up on it. But I was also very ethical, so I didn't,
yeah.
have any use for the skills.
Mhm.
But then it was almost 20 years ago now. I discovered, hey, I can do ethical hacking. And immediately I knew that was for me and I jumped into it. And I spent
Yeah.
quite a bit of time there. So, because I had a blast at ethical hacking, the stuff that you get to do, everything from quite literally popping government servers through their web applications over to
Yeah.
talking my way into bank vaults and casino money cages and actually I think my favorite was the a game operations center. We got to do uh, a, well, I guess in my career I only did one NBA game, one NHL game, and one WNBA game. But hey, they were all a blast.
Man, that's nice. There's more stories than I do about that. I never did get lucky with the whole like physical engagement, going on site and trying to get in or get the objective, because it was the one time that I ever did anything. And I know you always hear about that in the conferences. They're always like pwn this and pwn that, and it's like I did all this great stuff, and it's that shock and awe moment, and everybody in the crowd's like, "That's amazing! He's so great." And if I would tell my story, where it's like I would go to a bank and I tried to get somebody to plug in a flash drive, and they said no, and then they called the cops, and then they took pictures of me. And it was like this
Okay, did that
upside
happen?
down. Yeah. Oh, it was horrible. It was awful. I had my, it just didn't work.
So, I gotta say, for all the great stories, there are stories where you get caught as well. One of my favorite was me and this guy had our pictures distributed to the law enforcement in 4 different
Hmm.
states because this was in finance. It's a very large financial institution that has a footprint in every state. And so the loss prevention person had not been brought in on the fact that we're doing this assessment.
Oh boy.
And he probably should have been because one of the places that they picked for us to go test had just been robbed.
Oh
And
no.
and so it was just terrible timing on everything. Well,
Yeah.
I call up ahead of time and I just say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to be over there in a little bit," and I'm pretending to be the loss prevention guy. Well, the problem with this is they had just been robbed, so they know the loss prevention guy's voice very well, and he
Hmm.
has a very distinct voice, and I have a very distinct voice, and they're very different from each other. So she immediately knows that I'm not loss prevention, and I'm pretending to be. Well, I've set up the pretext that I'm coming, and she just plays along, right? And immediately calls the cops after we get off the phone.
Oh man.
We're on our way there. We're almost there, and I look at my coworker, and I'm like, man, I'm hungry. You want to grab some food before we do this? He's like, yeah, sure thing. So we go and we get lunch, and we probably take like a long lunch. So probably an hour and a half later, we roll up. Well, the police have now just left because they're like, they're not showing up,
Right.
and so they're already gone. And now we come in and we come in the back door. It's supposed to be locked, but I found over the years that people that smoke often leave these things propped open or
Hmm.
unlocked. And so I always try those doors before I come in the front. Well, in this case, I just come in the back, and she freaks out, and we tell her what's being done at this point because I don't want her to like have a I don't know panic attack.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I give my letter of authorization. Well, for whatever reason, I guess they didn't believe it. They thought we were just whatever. And so at this point, there's still a communications breakdown internally at this company. And so they distribute our picture to law enforcement in 4 states. What's funny is they only got the back of my head. and I have long hair. So in the description, they got my coworker right, but I was a white female.
Well, you're fine. You just turn in your buddy. It's like, get him. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah,
believe
it
you would do
wasn't me.
something. Yeah. Can't believe you would do that, would you? Yeah,
But
that's
I mean, I don't know. I think there's all those times where you do get caught. I
yeah.
mean, I got escorted out of a server room one time by a bunch of lawyers that looked more like bouncers than lawyers. They were so
Oh,
big.
wow.
So it happens. Okay, so let's talk about the human
Yeah.
element, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an incident response, so you
Mm.
must see human error all the time. I mean, am I wrong that human error is the number one thing that you clean up in incident response?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's the human element that, plagues everybody. There's not really a fix. It's because people are curious and people are always doing things. And our world like the security world is so much different. Like cybersecurity world and healthcare professionals we're different people. So there's that communication gap, I think, between a lot of us. So it's like we know about cybersecurity, but then we get doctors and nurses and everybody else who are getting patients who are coming in every day and they're sick and they need treatment and they're frustrated because of insurance issues or life. And it's just there's that clash between us both, or it's like we're trying to protect, they're trying to treat. So they're not aware of a lot of the cybersecurity stuff or the threats that are going on every day. So usually it's just they're working or they're tired or they're just curiosity and they're either clicking on links or they're going to websites or they're just, common stuff that a lot of people do every day. And it
Yeah.
could be a mix of a lot of things.
Oh, absolutely. And I actually do think that that there is a solution. Um, that there's so one of the things that I like to talk about and that I do a lot of talks on is what I call social engineering for good. It's really just behavioral science and psychology applied to cybersecurity and our awareness plans. But there was this behavioral science. I think his name was like BJ Chips, but this famous behavioral scientist from Stanford University, and he created a formula for behavior change, and it's B equals MAP, and it basically says so if we want behavior change, B, we need all three of the following to actually get that to happen. So M, it's motivation. So how do we
Mhm.
motivate people? What are their motivations to begin with? Family, money. Those are two really big drivers. Stability. So we can play into all of those with our training by giving them tips for their elderly parents, giving them tips for their children. The next one is A, and that's ability. And this I'm just now seeing cybersecurity finally learn about and take take control of. And so ability is just how easy is it? The easier we make it on the user to be secure, the more likely they are to do it. In fact, if we make security the easiest option, it becomes the default option. And heuristically, people are almost always going to pick the default. So if security is the default, they're more likely to go that way. But then is P, and P stands for prompting. And this is the part that I think we really miss as a whole as cybersecurity teams. And what prompting is it's every time we're reminding them about cybersecurity. So if it's a once a year training, followed by maybe an occasional newsletter, we're not prompting very often. If it's quarterly training, it's a little bit better, but we're still not prompting very often. And this is why I'm a really big advocate of continuous micro training. And when I say micro training, I truly mean micro training. Ideally under 30 seconds, but certainly under 60 seconds for every single time we're asking them for their we're asking them to learn about security. And let's take that doctor as an example. So I don't think we need to get technical with the doctor. I think we need a couple seconds of his or her time where we just simply say, hey, listen, they're targeting you. Number one way they'll try and get you is with urgency, or I'm sorry, with authority. Number two way they'll try and get you is with urgency. And I think we got to reshape what we're training our users on and really simplify the message, because when we take more time on I guess, forming and shaping our words, they become more effective. And my favorite example of this, and I got it from a guest that was on the show a while back, Denise Chrysler, and she says, "Well, I say we need more marketing in cybersecurity," and she replies, she goes, "We actually brought marketing in, and we've been saying for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, we've been saying security is everyone's responsibility." And marketing came in and changed it to security is your responsibility. And that is a perfect example of the framing effect. So, framing effect is a cognitive bias. We all have multiple, well, hundreds of cognitive biases that exist within our brain. And they're little mental shortcuts we quickly use to make decisions. Well, one of them is that the way things are worded makes a big difference on how we interpret it. So, security is everyone's responsibility. If you're the typical person, you see that, oh, it's everyone's. Matthew has it. I don't need to worry about it. He's got my back. But if it's my responsibility, there's no way of putting it off on somebody else.
Yeah,
Does
that
that
was
make
really
sense?
good. Yeah, yeah. I've actually when you start talking about it, I do remember that actually when it comes to that formula. I think visited that a long time ago. But that was really good. I mean, that was very insightful and informative. I'd forgotten about that. I think the one thing I would add too is like it's a when it comes to social engineering and things like that. I think it's going to be the one of the biggest defining moments of change would have to come from marketing was good too, but it's like the internal um, behavior of companies for so long. So it's like we send out, phishing simulations all the time and things like that, and people click or you don't click, and rewards and all the other systems work too. So one of my favorites is where we'll send you like a QR code or something, and and people will scan it or whatever happens, and then we go to this narrative and we teach people and we say don't click on anything, don't scan anything, and so you don't know who it's coming from, only if it's coming from us, and that's what you got to do because we're trusted. And then we teach that narrative, but then we send internal documents all the time where it's like benefits enrollment, upcoming, whatever. And it's like scan the QR code, click the link. I'm like, but our whole narrative is said don't scan or don't click. So it's like, but if we continue that behavior, even for legitimate reasons, I think we're still kind of teaching that behavior of scanning and clicking.
I will say that's why we changed our advice. So
Yeah.
we actually force our users to click as part of our training.
Oh, wow.
And we did this on purpose. We give them a number of ways that they can know that it's safe to click. Starting with, we work with you to remove that external sender banner, and we make sure it's on every single email that's coming from externally.
Yeah.
But on top of that, we teach them to trust their gut. We show them we teach them to pay attention to the sender, and we give them a security phrase that will throw in everything when we're asking them to click. We do this for two reasons. Number one, ability, going back to making it easy. If all the content's delivered to their email, they're more likely to do it. But the other reason that we do it this way is because I've seen people get so afraid of their email and clicking
Mhm.
on stuff that it has an impact on business productivity. And that is not the goal. What we want is users to understand how to use their inbox securely.
Yeah.
And so I'm of the impression or of the mindset that it's not bad to teach them to click because there's a million times they are going to have to click. So if we
That's
tell them
true.
they never click anything, how are they going to reset their password? How are they going to sign up for benefits enrollment?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's good. Yeah, I mean, there's that part too. I mean, that's why we still have so many successful, phishing campaigns from threat actors, and that's why phishing is such a big issue now. It's like trying to find where you want to put that needle, in your organization, where it's like, your training and all the messages that come through and what's good to click and what's not to click, and then it's also the issues of like internal communications, being aware of your surroundings, because you could have an internal compromise from one person who's actually now under the control of the threat actor, and then they just blast emails to everybody. It's like, well, it's coming from Jim from accounting. I talk to him every day. It's like maybe he's just having an off day, and they click the link or they download the attachment. So it's like it's just this huge ecosystem of social engineering. That's why it's so successful, I guess.
So this is why I believe we have to train our people and our computers how to understand the underlying psychological cues or manipulation cues. Actually, we are in the process of releasing an LLM called
Hmm.
Phishing, and it's email security with emotional intelligence because it can do exactly that. But it's not just on the technology side; it's on the people side too. And people need to understand how they're being targeted. And to me, I think it's far more important that we tell them, listen, be really careful anytime you see, an email from somebody high up in the company. Do you normally get emails from the CEO? Okay, well, you should probably not trust it. But
Yeah.
and the other one is,
Yeah.
urgency. Anytime you're being rushed. And I think the third biggest one is emotion. If you have emotion in your inbox and it's anything but anger, it's probably a fish. Anger
Yeah.
happens a couple times legitimately, but the rest of them, it's
Yeah.
probably
That's
a
a good.
fish. But I
Yeah.
think it's those types of skills that we have to be teaching because the manipulation tactics are always the same, but the style of fish that they use changes as our business processes change.
Agreed.
Okay, so let's talk uh, gamification. Um, I personally am a really big fan of gamification, particularly as it pertains to phishing. Have you been in any teams that used gamification? Have you had an opportunity to see it? Did it have any impact?
I fortunately have not been.
Okay. Well, okay, let's go a different direction then. Role-based phishing. And I don't even want to start with our phishing simulations. I have seen a tremendous increase in the amount of phishing attacks facing specific member or team members and targeting them according to their role, their
Okay.
position, and they tend to even know the high organizational hierarchy. Have
Okay.
you
So you're
seen
talking
this?
about spear phishing or like whaling. So if you have a
Spear
CEO or
phishing, but it's almost
CFO.
like spear phishing on autopilot, where yes, it's spear phishing, but it's being done by AI, so it's happening so
Oh, man.
quickly and at such a high rate that it's not like your, I don't know, classic spear phishing. You didn't
Mhm.
see it come in at this rate.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen cases like that too. I've also seen cases where an individual had been, at one point I remember a certain individual had been phished and then you didn't know about it, but then they got this influx of spam all at once. And it was just tons and tons of just garbage. And it was kind of strange at first, and it was we kind of as far as like delving into it as far as like why you would have so much all at once or something that had changed dramatically. And it was just to hide evidence that the account had been compromised. They buried it, buried their email or their inbox so that way they could cover up the actual email for them being phished. And that was kind of interesting. As far as like
Oh, yeah,
large
it's
amounts of AI
interesting.
and everything all at once and stuff. I mean, I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen anything in that market.
Okay. Well, that's a really interesting one. I saw an
Very
interesting
interesting.
one last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago, that I was brought in. Now, this one is the most unique business email compromise I've ever seen. So, this vendor writes, or I guess this company writes their vendor saying, "Hey, we just tried to send you a payment. The wire didn't go through. Can
Oh
you
yeah.
confirm your banking information?" So at this point, it's all legit. They sent it to the legit place. So nothing has been messed up. Well, within 45 minutes of this email going out, a typo squatting domain gets registered where two letters in it are just, you know, flipped. And then about 1 hour later, a Zoho business email account gets registered. There is a fake reply to the original email that was sent. All
Oh
the same people, all of the details that were in the original email, everything. Like someone
wow.
was compromised. But because they fished instead of using the compromised account, we don't know who. And so it's inevitable that this is going to happen again.
Oh, wow. I've seen some of those where it's like a reply and then there's so much detail in it. And I think, there's a lot of solutions that kind of help with it too. And then a lot of it's like your internal processes as well that kind of help, where it's like we've been doing the same process for 5 or 10 years. And if we don't validate X, Y, and Z, then we can't move forward with the transfer. So those procedures are so important, because it's like you
They
can get
are.
hit with a lot of phishing emails, and with AI, and I'm not saying that that's not going to be the Achilles heel in the end, but the procedures when it gets down to Debbie, who's been in finance for like 20 or 30 years, and she's known things and she's teaching everybody else about their procedures, like we don't do anything without X, Y, and Z, and without
Yes.
that we don't move forward.
Well, I think that's the answer to deep fakes,
Mhm.
honestly, because
Oh
if
yeah,
they can
yeah,
deep fake my CFO to go out and say, "Hey, I need this money, send it now," process is how we combat that. I see a
yeah,
lot of technologies claiming they can detect deep fakes, and sure, they can now, but every day AI generated video gets better. And in fact, as of
yeah.
yesterday, it's better than anything Hollywood can do. So
Yeah,
it's I
it's
don't know
sad.
that I even believe this anymore that they can detect it. But even
Yeah,
if they can, I don't think that's the right solution. I think this is one that we solve old school process.
yeah,
We go and we validate everything out of band. We don't
yep,
trust any single communication channel.
no.
So
Yeah,
we
I
don't
haven't been a
trust.
part of those attacks. I'd love to see one just kind of come up. And you're right. I mean, it just comes into the procedures, and then kind of, I mean, I hate to say like common sense. It's not like offending people, but it's like it's just using your gut, I think, is a better phrase for it, because
It is, and
it,
I've never been a part of an incident where the people that were initially compromised
mhm.
didn't say that they knew something was off. Every single time they're like, "Oh, I knew better. I knew something was off. I should have known."
Yeah.
You hear comments like that at
Mhm.
almost every single incident, and I think it's because people don't trust their guts because they don't believe that they're capable of understanding cybersecurity. And I think it's because Hollywood makes cybersecurity out to be this thing that only a genius could understand. But
Yeah.
in my opinion, I think that's part of the issue here.
Yeah, yeah, I would definitely agree that that's the issue, and I mean, that's communication is such a big, it's such a big tool, especially in our arsenal of tools, communicating, everybody not being afraid to reach out and talk to IT or talk to cybersecurity. And I always used to tell them, it's like, I work for you. So if there's a question that you have, or, and people are just afraid to ask because they're afraid of like other people treating you like dirt or not understanding, and just that you would belittle them, and they just kind of keep to themselves. And like I said, I think a lot of the problems that we have right now is communication, because we don't really know how to communicate. And I hope one day that we do, because it just gets down to that point where, somebody in finance or accounting or something gets an email from, the CEO of a company who needs thousands of dollars, and like, I'm going to give this to him because he looks like he needs it. And other than the other psychological steps where it's like, has he ever talked to you? Does he ever send you text messages? Has he ever been to his house? But he's asking you for thousands of dollars. What made you wire the money? What made you send it? I mean, why didn't you reach out? Why didn't you question? There's just
Yeah.
so many different factors.
Well, and I think people are just naturally too trusting, particularly in the US, because we have been so disconnected from threats as a society for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing.
Yeah.
But we are still disconnected from threats. Whereas if you go over to like, the Middle East, wherever they've had much more recent threats,
Yeah.
they tend to be a much more security aware culture. And I think that it's just the bad that comes with the good of us not having those threats as real for our society.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
internet rewrites those for redraws those front lines.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any final bits of wisdom for our listeners before we wrap up today?
Yeah. So, I mean, I always try and think of that more and more every day, as far as like if I could ever tell somebody, like what would be ideal for you, in cybersecurity, and it's just, for a cybersecurity specialist, this is a wonderful career to get into. It's something that's amazing. once your feet hit the floor and you don't feel like doing cybersecurity or it's not for you, then, you got to find something else, some other thing that drives you, because it takes a passion to do it. And passion is such a valuable tool in this industry. And you got to love people. I know users click on things and people do things that they do, but people are people, and we got to communicate better, so that way we could all just kind of come together with this goal and, kind of meet each other on the same plane and help each other out, because we're all in this together. We all work for the same company. We're all in the same pool of life. For end users who are, just trying to get to work every day and then just trying to do their job, reach out to IT, get involved with us, and we're here to help you. I know some of us can be grumpy at certain times and stuff, but not all of us are that way. And we're here to help you. We're here to drive the industry. We're here to make businesses better, but we're here for change too. So
Well, I can tell you're going to be a CISO in no time based on that advice. So,
I hope so. I appreciate it.
well, no, I mean, I really do mean it. Communication is one of the most critical parts. And what I've seen is as largely that the best communicators are often the ones that are promoted the quickest through the information security ranks. Well, hey, it's been a pleasure getting a chance to interview you today. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
all of you joining us remotely. We will see you later this week. Thank you.
Thank you.